Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? Maybe because she let them. Captain Lena Hart sat quietly in the corner of the officers' mess, her uniform crisp, her flight bag resting beside her boots like a forgotten shadow. Around her, laughter echoed, sharp, cocky, and careless. The kind of laughter that filled rooms when people thought they were safe. Lieutenant Commander Jake "Razor" Morrison was at the center of it, performing again, voice rising above the hum of conversation as he told, for the third time, why women pilots would never have the reflexes for real air-to-air combat. "You can't teach instinct," he said, tapping his temple with two fingers. "You're either born with it or you're not. No offense, ladies, but your reaction times just aren't wired the same way." The others nodded, some awkwardly, others eagerly, as if agreeing made them part of something. Lena smiled faintly. She'd heard this song before, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in every briefing room where someone mistook silence for weakness. She stirred her coffee slowly, the spoon tracing small, patient circles. 11 confirmed kills. None of them new. She could have ended the conversation with one line, one statistic, one look, but she didn't. Sometimes it was easier to let people believe what they wanted to believe. Across the table, Razor grinned at her. "You agree, right, Captain? Logistics officers have the best view from the ground." A few chuckles. Someone coughed into his hand to hide a smirk. Lena's gaze stayed on her coffee. "Depends on what you're looking at, Commander." Before he could reply, the alarm klaxon shattered the air. A brutal, mechanical scream that cut through laughter and conversation alike. Every head turned. Then came the voice over the base loudspeakers, low and cold. "Scramble, scramble, scramble. Incoming enemy strike package. Multiple bogies inbound. All available aircraft to immediate launch. This is not a drill." Mugs hit tables, chairs scraped back. The room exploded into motion. Razor leapt to his feet, coffee splashing across his flight suit. "Finally, some real action." He turned to her, smiling like a man about to prove something. "Don't worry, Captain, we've got this. You should probably head to the shelter." She stood slowly, calmly, picked up her flight bag, the one she always kept within reach, and slung it over her shoulder. "Actually," she said quietly, "I think I'll head to the flight line." He frowned. "Why, you a crew chief or something?" She paused in the doorway, looking back at a room full of men, suddenly scrambling for helmets and flight gloves. Her voice was soft, almost lost beneath the alarm. "Something like that." What happened in the next 47 minutes would become one of the most classified and legendary air engagements in modern history. 4 enemy MiG-29s would enter the airspace. 4 would never leave. And the pilots who'd been laughing over coffee would learn that the quiet logistics officer they'd ignored was actually Viper, the Air Force's most lethal air-to-air killer. But none of them knew that yet. Outside Alazad Air Base was chaos incarnate. Ground crews sprinted across the tarmac, refueling trucks swerving, engines coughing to life. The desert sun hung low, turning the sky into a sheet of molten copper. Lena moved through the frenzy with a calm that didn't belong here. Her boots struck the concrete with quiet certainty. No wasted motion, no hesitation. The tower's voice blared across frequencies. "Unknown aircraft bearing 270, range 80 miles, closing fast. Multiple contacts. Estimated 12 to 15 in main strike package." Pilots were running from the operations building, already pulling on G-suits and helmets. To them, it was adrenaline. To her, it was math. Every step she took, every switch she would flip had already played out in her mind. She was never faster than fear, just better at managing it. Her aircraft waited in the far revetment. An F-16C, gray and unremarkable, tail number 471. No unit markings, no call sign painted on the fuselage, just another jet in the row. Except it was. Master Sergeant Chen, her crew chief, was already there, pulling the chocks and running a final pre-flight check. He didn't salute, that would draw attention, but the relief on his face said enough. "Thought you might be stuck in the admin building, ma'am," he said. "Not today, Sergeant." She climbed the ladder, fingers brushing metal warm from the sun. Every motion was memory, thousands of hours condensed into instinct. Status: full fuel, full combat load. 4 AIM-120 AMRAAMs, 2 AIM-9X Sidewinders, 20mm ammo full. Aircraft is code 1 and ready to kill things, ma'am. Outstanding. Clear me out as soon as I have power. She settled into the cockpit, a familiar cocoon of switches, steel, and heartbeat. The harness clicked into place. The helmet sealed the world away. Battery on, JFS start. The engine's whine rose from a whisper to a roar. The HUD flickered alive in soft green light. This was home. 8 years of flying. 3 years in this jet. 17 kills marked quietly under the canopy rail, no name, no artwork. The dead didn't need decoration. Through the glass she saw Razor's F-16 taxiing ahead, bold sharkmouth paint job, bright call sign under the canopy. Typical, the kind of man who needed his jet to introduce him before he spoke. Tower Viper checking in, ready for taxi. A pause, then a different voice came on, Colonel Sarah Hendricks, base commander. Viper Falcon lead, authenticate Alpha 79er. Lena opened a small laminated card, found the code. Authenticate Bravo 33. Confirmed. Viper, you are weapons-free and cleared for combat operations. Give them hell. Roger that. She pushed the throttle forward. The F-16 rolled onto the taxiway, following the others toward the active runway. The sunlight flashed off helmets and wings. One by one, the jets roared down the strip and clawed into the sky, afterburners igniting, leaving streaks of orange fire. Lena waited her turn, checked radar, weapons systems, countermeasures, fuel. All green. Viper cleared for takeoff, runway 27, winds 250 at 15. Good hunting. Copy, Viper rolling. She advanced the throttle to military power. The engine's roar filled her bones. She released the brakes and slammed the throttle into afterburner. The jet surged forward like it had been shot from a bowstring. 80 knots, 100, 140. She pulled back gently. The ground fell away. Gear up, flaps up. She climbed through 300 knots, banking west toward the sun. Viper airborne, heading 270, climbing Angels 20. Copy, Viper, be advised, Falcon flight engaging. Multiple bandits inbound. It's going to get messy. Messy always was. At 20,000 feet, her radar painted the sky in green ghosts. 12 MiG-29s, 2 groups of 6, closing fast in perfect Soviet formation. But behind the obvious threat, she saw something else. 4 additional radar contacts, lower, faster, moving wide. Flankers. Her breath caught for half a second, not from fear, but from recognition. A classic hammer and anvil tactic. Draw attention to the big group while the hidden wing tears your defenses apart. No one else saw them. The low group was masked by terrain, flying beneath radar coverage. But her F-16 wasn't standard issue. Her bird had classified systems, upgraded sensors the manuals didn't mention. She switched to tactical frequency. Falcon lead, Viper. I have 4 additional bandits, bearing 245, range 40 miles, Angels 5, speed 520 knots. They're flanking low. Razor's voice crackled through heavy G-forces. Negative, Viper. We only show the main group. You sure about that? Positive, breaking off to engage flankers. You handle the main force. Wait, who authorized? Colonel Hendricks's voice cut in, firm and final. She's authorized. Viper, weapons free on the flankers. Keep them off our base. Roger. Lena rolled the F-16 inverted and pulled hard. The horizon spun, desert flipping above her, then below. The G-forces hit her chest like a punch, but she didn't flinch. The world narrowed to one thing, a mission. Diving to 10,000 feet, she broke the sound barrier. The jet shuddered briefly, then smoothed out, slicing through the air like a blade. Radar lock, 4 targets still unaware of her. She armed her AIM-120 AMRAAMs. Fox 3, she called and squeezed the trigger. The first missile dropped from the rail and ignited, a streak of white smoke and fire cutting across the sky. She didn't wait to see it hit. Second lock. Fox 3. Third. Fox 3. 3 missiles in the air in 15 seconds. The lead MiG exploded, a bloom of fire visible for miles. The others scattered, panic in their formation, in their voices. Brake right, missiles inbound. Second impact, another fireball. The third missed, confused by flares and chaff. The fourth MiG dove low, desperate, reckless. Lena locked him again. Fox 3. Hit confirmed. The MiG's tail ripped apart. The pilot ejected, his parachute a small, white flower against the smoke. 3 kills, 1 left. The last MiG turned on her. Her radar warning screamed. He'd locked her, missile away. She broke left, 9 Gs crushing her into the seat. The sky dimmed around the edges of her vision. Flares out, chaff bursting behind like metallic confetti. The enemy missile passed close enough she saw the fins. Too close. They merged head-on, both jets twisting, rolling, climbing. This wasn't beyond visual range combat anymore. This was knife fighting at Mach 1. Her training took over. The F-16's nose tracked through impossible arcs, her hands steady on the stick. She forced an overshoot, baited the MiG into pulling too hard, bleeding speed. Then she went vertical, straight up. He followed, big mistake. At the top of the climb, his jet hung slow, heavy, helpless. She rolled inverted, dove, converted altitude into speed. Her AIM-9X Sidewinder tone whined in her headset, the sweet sound of a lock. Fox 2. The missile streaked away, homing on the MiG's engine heat. Impact. A flash, a spiral of fire, a dark plume falling toward the desert. Falcon lead Viper, 4 flankers splashed, Winchester on AMRAAMs, 2 Sidewinders remaining. Silence, then Razor's voice quieter now. Viper, you just killed 4 bandits solo. Affirmative, what's your status? Engaged with main force. We're outnumbered, could use some help. On my way. She lit the afterburner, the F-16 roaring west into a sky streaked with contrails and smoke. As she climbed toward the main battle, her reflection flickered in the HUD, calm eyes behind the visor, lips pressed in focus. Nobody at that mess table would ever look at her the same way again. But that didn't matter. She didn't fly for recognition. She flew for something harder to define, a quiet promise made long ago, before the medals, before the kills. To never let arrogance cost lives. To never underestimate silence. The horizon burned with fire ahead. She gripped the throttle tighter. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. What does courage sound like when the sky is on fire? To some, it's a battle cry. To her, it was silence, the deep, focused kind that made every sound sharper. The hum of the engine, the breathing in her mask, the heartbeat she could still hear beneath 9 Gs of pressure. The desert below was alive with chaos, trails of smoke, scattered flashes, dots moving faster than thought. The radio was a storm, overlapping calls, missile warnings, static mixed with fear. Falcon 2 hit, I'm ejecting. Brake left. Jesus, they're everywhere. Lena rolled level at 25,000 feet. Her HUD lit up with targets, a constellation of red symbols marking the furball ahead. She could almost feel the confusion in the air, half the squadron breaking defensive, half chasing kills. It wasn't a fight. It was a massacre waiting to happen. Falcon lead, Viper inbound from southwest. Hold your defensive patterns. Stay clear of my 12 o'clock. No response. Then Razor's voice, strained and clipped, came through between bursts of static. Viper, we're getting shredded here. They're coordinated. They're using our own radar spacing against us. Of course they were. The enemy had done their homework. She pushed the throttle to afterburner, the F-16 shuddering as twin flames poured from its tail. The speed built until the G-forces pressed her spine into the seat. The world outside blurred into streaks of blue and gold. And then she was there, in the middle of it. A MiG-29 crossed her nose at 900 knots, chasing a friendly who was trying to climb out of range. Lena didn't think. She reacted. Guns. Her thumb flicked the master arm switch. The M61 Vulcan cannon erupted, a violent, metallic roar that shook the cockpit. 6,000 rounds a minute, tracers stitched across the sky like lightning. The MiG took the hit square through the fuselage. A burst of flame. The canopy blew off, and a black speck parachute tumbled into the open air. "Splash 5, she said, almost under her breath. No one answered, but everyone heard. To the pilots below, it was like something unseen had entered the fight. A blur that appeared, struck, and vanished again. "Who the hell is that?" someone shouted over the radio. "That's Viper," Razor said, and for once there was no arrogance in his voice, only awe. She rolled inverted, dove through the maelstrom, and came up on another MiG cutting across the formation. "Log Fox 2. The Sidewinder screamed away, heat-seeking, relentless. "Impact. Splash 6. Her breathing stayed steady, measured, even as sweat trickled down her neck. It wasn't adrenaline that drove her, it was clarity. She didn't fly like she wanted to live forever. She flew like she had nothing left to prove. Another voice broke through. "Falcon 3 down, I've lost control." "Falcon lead, Viper, I've got your 6, she said. Razor's F-16 was being hounded by two MiGs, one above, one low, a coordinated attack. Classic bracket maneuver. She could see it unfolding before he could. She dove. The G-forces crushed her into the seat, but she held the line. The first MiG came into view. Guns again. Her rounds walked across the MiG's spine, slicing through the tail. The jet exploded in midair, a blossom of fire against the horizon. Razor broke free, pulling hard into a climbing turn. "Thanks, Viper," he said, voice tight. "Don't thank me yet." The second MiG was coming around fast. She saw the contrails curve behind him as he tried to swing onto Razor's tail again. Lena yanked the stick right, rolled, then reversed the turn, a violent high-G maneuver that made the blood leave her head. Her vision tunneled gray, but she held on. The MiG overshot, just for a heartbeat, but that was all she needed. "Log Fox 2. The missile streaked forward, found its mark. "Splash 7. The radio fell silent for a moment. Even the chaos paused to breathe. Then came Razor's voice again, quieter this time. You're really Viper." "Affirmative." "The Viper, Syria, Yemen, 20+ kills." 28, she said. "Focus on staying alive, Commander." The fight devolved into close-range madness. Contrails looped and twisted, a ballet of death in the upper sky. Lena weaved between friendly and enemy signatures, firing when she had to, diving when she didn't. Every decision was instinct sharpened by years of surviving things she shouldn't have. She'd been underestimated before in boardrooms, in cockpits, in entire wars. But today wasn't about proving them wrong. Today was about survival. Viper Falcon lead were down to 2 ships, 5 hostiles remaining. "I see them. Stay defensive. I'll clear your tail." "Copy that." She looped behind the trailing MiG, The pilot never even saw her. Guns, the rounds ripped through the canopy. Another parachute blossomed. Splash 8. But now the others knew she was here, and they wanted her. 2 MiGs broke from the main group and went hunting. She saw their contrails swinging wide, trying to pin her in a pincer move. Clever. 2 on me, she said calmly. Viper break south, I'll cover, Razor shouted. Negative, maintain position. If they wanted her, they'd get her. She pulled into the sun, letting its glare mask her jet on their radars. The MiGs followed. Come on, she whispered. She cut throttle, air brakes flaring. The sudden deceleration threw both pursuers off balance. They shot past her, one above, one below. She targeted the upper first. Fox 2. The Sidewinder shrieked away, direct hit. The MiG vanished in fire. She rolled, snapped the jet upside down, and dove after the second. The G's hit like a hammer, but she stayed locked. Guns. The cannon shells tore through the MiG's right wing. It spun out of control, trailing fire before disintegrating in the thin air. Splash 9. For a heartbeat, there was only the hum of her jet, the rasp of her breathing. The sky was littered with wreckage and drifting parachutes. Falcon lead status, she asked. Down to me and Falcon 4, Razor replied. 2 bandits remaining. They're bugging out, heading east. She exhaled slowly, a long release of tension she hadn't realized she was holding. Negative pursuit, Colonel Hendricks ordered over command frequency. All aircraft return to base. Great work, everyone. Lena banked west, her jet slicing through the dying light. The sun had dropped low, painting the desert in bronze. On her HUD, the radar finally cleared. No more red symbols, just silence. Her fuel was low, her ammo nearly gone, but her mind was still in the fight, the rhythm of it, the way decisions had felt like heartbeat syncopations. When she crossed back over Alazad Air Base, the runway lights were already burning bright. Viper cleared to land, runway 27, the tower said. Copy, gear down. The wheels touched down smooth, almost gentle. The engine wound down with a low whine as she taxied in. She popped the canopy and breathed real air again. It tasted of heat and jet fuel. And that's when she saw them, the entire flight line gathered near her revetment. Mechanics, ground crew, pilots, even Razor, helmet tucked under one arm. He didn't say anything at first, just looked up at her as she climbed down the ladder. You're really her, he said finally, the Viper. She set her helmet on the wing. Was, she said, it's 29 now. The crowd murmured, awe, disbelief, pride, maybe all of it mixed. Lena's gaze swept the faces. Anyone still think female pilots don't have the reflexes for real air-to-air combat? Silence. Good, she said. Now let's talk about why the hell our radar missed 4 flankers sneaking up on us. The debriefing lasted 3 hours. Lena walked the squadron through every second of the engagement. She replayed radar footage, pointing out patterns, explaining split-second choices, why she'd gone vertical against one MiG, why she'd waited before engaging the others. Razor listened, taking notes like a student in a master class. Gone was the swagger, in its place, a quiet humility. When the session ended, most of the pilots stayed seated, watching her pack up. Lieutenant Maria Santos, one of the only other women in the squadron, raised her hand. When you went vertical against the 4th MiG, she asked, you were trading speed for altitude when he had the energy advantage. What made you confident you could recover? Lena smiled, a real one this time. Because I'd watched him for 30 seconds. He was aggressive but predictable. Every turn he pulled max Gs without conserving energy. I knew if I baited him vertical he'd follow. That was the trap. At the top of the climb he stalled, I didn't. Santos nodded, scribbling notes furiously. Razor just shook his head. You baited a MiG like a matador. More like chess, Lena said softly. Every move has a counter if you're patient enough to see it. When the room finally emptied, Colonel Hendricks approached. "The intel boys are losing their minds," she said quietly. "The enemy strike was too precise. They knew too much about this base. We've got a leak somewhere." "What do you need from me?" Lena asked. "Keep doing what you do. Logistics officer by day, ace by night. Find out what you can through your channels." The colonel hesitated. "But your cover's gone. Everyone knows now." "That's fine," Lena said. "The cover was for the enemy, not our own. Maybe it's time they saw what a woman can actually do in combat." The colonel nodded. "You realize they'll want revenge." "Let them try." Hendricks smiled. "That's what I like about you, Captain, no quit." That night the desert was quiet again. The hangars dark, the horizon faintly glowing under a million stars. Lena stood alone beside her jet. The F-16 skin reflected starlight, a ghost of motion, silent and ready. She touched the fuselage lightly, fingertips tracing the edges of the kill marks beneath the canopy. 29 now, each one earned, each one paid for. In the distance she heard faint laughter from the barracks, the kind that carried on warm wind. Razor's voice among them, Santos too. It made her smile. Maybe something had shifted today. Maybe the next time a young woman walked into a briefing room, she wouldn't have to start by proving she belonged. The sky above was empty now, but she knew better. Somewhere out there, radar screens were lighting up again. Somewhere, someone was planning payback. And when they came, she'd be ready. Because she always was. How long does quiet really last after war? At Al-Azad, it lasted exactly 14 days. 2 weeks of clear skies, normal patrols, and the illusion that the desert had forgiven them. Lena knew better. The air was too calm, the routines too easy. She could feel the waiting, like the pause between heartbeats before something breaks. Mornings began the same. The hangar doors rolled open, the sun poured in like liquid gold, and she'd walk the flight line with a clipboard in hand, pretending to be what her paperwork said she was, Logistics Coordination Officer. Pilots saluted her now. Ground crews called her ma'am instead of miss. Even Razor stopped filling the mess with stories and started listening instead. He was different, quieter, still brash in the air but thoughtful on the ground. He'd taken every one of her tactical notes to heart. One afternoon, she found him in the simulator bay, sweating through another practice sortie. "Your roll rate's good," she said, standing behind him. "But you're climbing too early on the merge. Stay level, force him to commit first." He paused the sim and turned, half smiling. "Still feels strange taking advice from the person who saved my life. You make it sound like a bad thing." "It's not," he said. Then more quietly, "It's humbling." Lena tilted her head. "Humility's a good start, survival's better." She left him with that, because lectures were easy, lessons weren't. Every night she returned to the same bench overlooking the runway. From there, she could see the faint scars of the battle still etched into the sand. Craters patched over, debris cleared, but the memory lingered, a ghost painted in heat and silence. She thought about the ones who hadn't come back, the parachutes that never opened, the static that ended mid-sentence. War had a rhythm, and she'd learned to hear its tempo. The tempo was building again. 3 days later, intel confirmed it. Colonel Hendricks called her into the secure briefing room. The walls hummed with old electronics, the fluorescent light too bright, too clinical. A handful of officers sat around the table, eyes tired, faces drawn tight. The colonel didn't waste time. "We intercepted enemy chatter from the northern corridor. Multiple references to the female American pilot who killed 7 of their best. They're calling you by name, Viper." Lena folded her arms, leaning against the wall. "Let me guess, they want revenge." "More than that," Hendricks said. "They're planning a targeted strike. You're the objective." Someone slid a photo across the table. a blurred satellite image of aircraft lined up on a distant base. "Meet Colonel Malev Vyulov," Hendricks said. "Call sign Berkut the Eagle, 32 confirmed kills, Russian-trained, veteran of Chechnya and Donbass. He's leading the unit that lost those MiGs." Lena studied the photo. The man was lean, broad-shouldered, face marked with age and certainty, the kind of eyes that didn't blink when things exploded. "Honor-driven," one analyst added, "takes losses personally, especially when inflicted by someone he deems inferior." "Inferior meaning?" "You," the colonel said simply. Lena exhaled through her nose, slow and deliberate. "So he's going to make it personal." "He already has," Hendricks said. "Our intercepts suggest he wants a duel one-on-one. His message ends with, 'We settle this in the sky.'" A beat of silence. Then Razor, sitting 2 seats down, muttered, "It's a trap. He'll never fight fair." Lena looked at him, then back to the colonel. "Probably not. But if I don't respond, he'll force it another way, ambush a patrol, hit a convoy, get people killed until I show up." "I can't authorize this," Hendricks said firmly. "With respect, ma'am, you won't have to. If he calls, I'll answer. I'd rather choose the field than let him choose it for me." The colonel's jaw tightened. She'd seen this side of Lena before, the calm before a storm. Finally, she nodded. "Radar surveillance only. Weapons tight for everyone else, but you'll have backup on call." Lena nodded once, understood. When the briefing ended, Razor caught up with her outside the room. "You're really going to do this?" "Yes." "He's got 30+ kills, Lena. You can't." "I can," she said softly, "and I will, because men like him only understand one language: losing." That night she didn't sleep. She sat on her bunk, rolling a small silver bracelet between her fingers. It wasn't regulation, a thin band engraved with initials worn smooth by time. EMH. Her brother. He'd been a pilot too, years ago. Same eyes, same quiet streak. His jet went down over Syria, a surface-to-air hit no one saw coming. The only thing recovered was that bracelet. She wore it now, not for luck but as a reminder that every flight was borrowed time, that arrogance kills faster than bullets. Outside, the wind swept across the hangars, whispering through the metal ribs like breath through teeth. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow she would meet the Eagle. Dawn rose pale and merciless. The flight lines shimmered under early heat. Maintenance crews moved quietly. Even they felt it, the tension in the air, the kind that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Lena suited up in silence. The ritual steadied her. Flight suit, G-vest, helmet, gloves. She zipped the collar high and felt the weight settle across her shoulders. Razor approached, helmet under his arm. "You sure you don't want a wingman?" "No," he challenged me, "alone. I'll end it alone." "You think he'll honor that?" "No," she said, "but I will." She climbed the ladder into her jet. Chen was waiting, as always, expression unreadable. "Everything checks out, ma'am. Clean load, 4 AMRAAMs, 2 Sidewinders, full gun. No surprises." "Good," she said. "Keep the coffee warm, I'll be back." The canopy closed, the cockpit sealed with a hiss. For a moment the world was just her, heartbeat, engine, and sky. Tower Viper, requesting clearance for solo training flight, grid Echo 7. Copy Viper, cleared for takeoff. Winds calm, Godspeed. The F-16 rolled down the runway and lifted smoothly into the pale dawn. At 20,000 feet she leveled off, switching to open tactical frequency. The static hummed for a few seconds, then broke. "This is Berkut to the American pilot called Viper," a voice said, accented, cold. "I know you hear this." She did. "7 of my brothers you killed. This is not war, this is murder. I challenge you, 1 aircraft, 1 pilot, you and me. We settle this with honor." The transmission repeated 3 times, then went silent. Lena keyed her mic. "Copy that, Berkut, name the grid." A pause. Then coordinates came through, an empty stretch of neutral airspace over the northern dunes. 30 minutes, he said. No interference, no running. Wouldn't dream of it. The world slowed down in those 30 minutes. She flew north alone, the sun climbing behind her. The desert stretched endless below, rippling, colorless, ancient. The kind of place that made humans seem small, temporary. At the designated point, her radar pinged one contact, closing. He came out of the sunrise, silver and scarred, the MiG-29 slicing through the light like a knife. They circled each other at a distance of 5 miles, two predators measuring weight and timing. Brave, Burkett said over the open channel, or foolish, which are you, Viper? Depends on the day. Today you die. We'll see. She armed her missiles. You start, Eagle. The merge was a blur, two machines hurtling at Mach 1.2, passing canopy to canopy in less than 2 seconds. Both broke hard, contrails carving mirrored spirals through the thin air. Burkett came aggressive, just as predicted, high-energy turns, thrust vector maneuvers, trying to dominate early. His MiG danced through impossible angles, nose swinging like a cobra's head. He was good, very good. But good pilots chase the kill, great ones wait for it. Lena held defensive posture, conserving energy, letting him burn through his momentum. Fox 3, his missile shot wide. She dumped chaff, rolled inverted dove. Another lock, another missile, same result, nothing. Her RWR screamed, then went silent. She felt shrapnel ping off her tail, close but not fatal. He was getting impatient. She could hear it in his breathing over the comms. Then she saw it, the subtle shift. His turns smoothed, the aggression tapered. He was changing rhythm, slipping into his patient mode, the methodical stalking that had killed so many before. That was the moment she'd been waiting for. She broke hard right, exposing herself deliberately, bait. He took it. The MiG dove after her, closing fast, guns armed. She cut power, pulled vertical, forcing a head-on merge. The G-forces slammed into her chest. The sky blurred. Let's see if you still believe in honor, she whispered. The MiG's nose lined up for a perfect gunshot. She fired first. The 20 Vulcan spat thunder. The rounds walked through the space the MiG was about to occupy. They hit not fatal but brutal. Metal sheared from his left wing. Hydraulic fluid vented in a glittering arc. Good shooting, Burkett said, voice ragged. But this is not over. His jet rolled, fighting for balance. Then stop talking and fly, she replied. The duel lasted 17 minutes, a lifetime measured in turns and tone locks. He fought like a man who refused to die quietly, but every defensive move cost him speed, altitude, control. His MiG began trailing smoke. The left wing trembled. Finally, she had position perfect, centered, unmissable. Her sidewinder tone whined in her headset. Burkett, she said quietly, you're done. Eject now or I pull the trigger. Silence, then a chuckle, weary, resigned. Good kill, Viper, you earned this. Gender means nothing, skill is skill. She didn't fire. He ejected. The MiG tumbled into the mountains and vanished in a bloom of orange dust. When she landed back at Alazad, the base was waiting. Not cheering, watching. Silent, reverent, almost afraid. Santos met her on the tarmac, helmet under her arm. You beat their best, she said softly. Lena climbed down the ladder, her legs trembling now that the adrenaline was gone. No, she said, I beat his assumptions. She turned toward the setting sun, the horizon glowing the same color as afterburner fire. And for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a breath that didn't taste of war. Sometimes victory isn't loud. Sometimes it's a single moment of quiet, when the sky finally stops trying to kill you. What do you say after you kill a legend? The hangar was silent when Lena walked in, helmet still in her hand, flight suit streaked with sweat and dust. The air smelled of jet fuel and desert wind, but beneath that hung something heavier, a silence made of awe and unease. Everyone had seen it. The data link feed, the radar traces, the final moment when the MiG disintegrated against the mountainside. The duel had played out on monitors across the base. And now, the base didn't know whether to celebrate or mourn. Colonel Hendricks waited at the far end of the room. Razor stood beside her, arms folded, eyes down. Santos was there too, notebook clutched tight against her chest. Lena stopped 3 paces short. The colonel spoke first. "He's confirmed dead. We found the wreckage, no rescue beacons." Lena nodded once. She didn't smile. Hendricks's voice softened. "You did what had to be done, Captain. You ended it before he could make it a slaughter." "Maybe," Lena said quietly. "But he died believing he was the last honorable man in the sky. That's a different kind of casualty." Razor looked up. "He challenged you. You didn't choose this fight." "I did the moment I answered," she replied. "Every engagement is a choice, Commander, even when it doesn't feel like one." The colonel gestured toward the debriefing table. "Sit down. Let's go through it while it's still fresh." They replayed the duel in slow motion on the big screen. The green trail of her F-16 curved and looped, intersecting the red of the MiG again and again like a dance drawn in light. "Here," she said, pointing to one frame. "He shifted to energy conservation mode. That's when I reversed. His thrust vectoring gave him angles, but it also made him predictable. Every time he vectored nose high, his lift dropped. I exploited that rhythm." Santos scribbled notes rapidly. "You read him like a pattern." "Because people are patterns," Lena said. "Machines just reveal them faster." Razor frowned. "You make it sound clinical." "It is," she said, "until it is." The colonel leaned forward, meaning. Lena hesitated. On the screen, Burkutt's jet spiraled downward again, smoke trailing like a ribbon. "Meaning, at the end, I heard his voice. Calm, accepting. He wasn't afraid. He was relieved. Maybe that's what got to me." Razor spoke softly. "He called you the better pilot." Lena's gaze stayed on the screen. "He called me equal. That's rarer." After the debrief, Hendricks dismissed the others. "Stay a moment," she told Lena. When the door closed, the colonel dropped her official tone. "You did what we needed, but you also painted a target on yourself. Intelligence confirms enemy networks are already using your name as propaganda. You're the phantom ace now, their cautionary tale." Lena sighed. "Then maybe they'll think twice before flying into our airspace. Or maybe they'll train harder. Then so will we." The colonel smiled faintly. "That's what I like about you, Captain. You never flinch." Lena's eyes drifted to the window overlooking the runway. "You ever wonder what happens after all this?" Hendricks followed her gaze. "You mean when the fighting stops?" "No," Lena said quietly. "When I stop." The colonel said nothing. Some questions had no safe answers. Night came fast over the desert. The base quieted, just the whine of generators and the occasional metallic ping from cooling engines. Lena walked the tarmac alone, helmet cradled against her hip. The sky above was a blanket of stars, brilliant and indifferent. She found herself near the memorial wall, a slab of steel with names etched deep, pilots who never made it home. Her brother's initials gleamed among them, EMH. She traced the letters with a gloved fingertip. The metal was cold. "You'd hate what I've become," she whispered, "but you'd understand why." She sat on the concrete, back against the wall, helmet beside her. Somewhere in the distance, laughter drifted from the barracks. Razor again, probably. Maybe Santos too. She smiled faintly. They were good pilots now, better than she'd been at their age. That was enough. The next morning, the squadron assembled without orders. Word had spread that Viper was holding a session in the ready room. She didn't plan speeches, she never did. But when she saw all of them waiting, some curious, some reverent, She knew what she needed to say. "You saw what happened yesterday," she began. "You've watched the footage. You know the tactics. But what I want you to remember isn't how to win." A pause. The room leaned in. "It's what winning costs." She pointed to the wall display, Burkutt's MiG breaking apart in slow motion. "Every time we pull that trigger, someone doesn't go home. Doesn't matter if they're the enemy. Doesn't matter if they do the same to us. It's still a life. Don't ever forget that." Santos's eyes glistened, Razor's jaw clenched. Lena continued, voice steady but low. "Arrogance kills faster than missiles. The moment you think you're invincible, you've already started falling." She looked directly at Razor then, not accusing but reminding. He nodded once. He understood. "Now," she said, letting the moment breathe, "let's talk about survival. Because the best pilots I've known weren't the fastest or the bravest. They were the ones who refused to panic when everything went wrong." The next hour was pure focus. She walked them through energy management, merged geometry, missile countertactics. She made them think, not react. By the end, the air in the room had changed. The swagger was gone. What remained was discipline. Afterward, Razor lingered. "I was an idiot," he said quietly. "Back in that mess hall, talking down to you. I thought I understood air combat because I read about it." "You learned," she said simply. "I did, and I'll keep learning." She smiled, faint but genuine. "Good, then my work's not wasted." He hesitated. "Does it ever get easier, the killing?" Her answer came after a long silence. "No, it just gets quieter." Days blurred again into routine. Patrols, briefings, simulations. But something fundamental had shifted. The squadron wasn't just following her orders, they were following her example. Santos began leading a tactics group for junior pilots. Razor organized after-hours simulator drills. The base morale rose not because of victory, but because of purpose. They called her the ghost teacher. She'd correct their mistakes mid-flight, her calm voice cutting through the chaos. "Too steep on that climb, Falcon 2. Ease off the G-pull, Falcon 4. And every time they landed, they'd find her waiting, arms crossed, that faint half-smile on her face. Fear had turned into faith. But Lena wasn't celebrating. Each night she wrote reports, declassified fragments, analytical summaries, but in the margins she wrote something else. Short, unaddressed notes she'd never send. "To the families of the men I killed today. He fought well, he was brave. I wish the world had given him something better to die for." She tore them out and burned them in a metal bin behind the hangar, tiny flames reflecting in her visor. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was weight, the kind that doesn't go away until someone else carries it. One evening, Santos joined her by the burn barrel. The younger pilot didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching paper turn to ash. Finally she asked, "Does writing help?" Lena didn't look up. "No, but not writing hurts." Santos nodded slowly. "I want to be like you." Lena smiled sadly. "No, you don't. You want to be better, you should be." Santos hesitated. "You really think that's possible?" "Yes," Lena said, "because you're already asking the right questions." They stood there a while longer, the desert wind tugging at their flight suits, carrying the smoke away toward a horizon that never stopped glowing. 2 weeks later, intelligence confirmed what Lena already suspected. The enemy command structure was fractured. Burkutt's death had broken something deeper than pride. It had shaken faith. But peace was a fragile word. Hendricks gathered them for a briefing. "We're getting reports of smaller, scattered raids, desperation tactics. This isn't over yet." Lena studied the map. "Desperate pilots are the most dangerous." "Then teach our people how to face them," Hendricks said. "They trust you now more than anyone." "Trust is earned in combat," Lena replied, "but kept through honesty." "Meaning?" "Meaning they need to know what fear looks like, so they recognize it in themselves before it kills them. That night, Lena wrote one more note, but this one she didn't burn. She folded it carefully and slid it inside her flight log. If I don't come back, tell them courage isn't the absence of fear. It's flying anyway. She closed the logbook, turned off the light, and sat by the window. Outside, the desert stretched endless and waiting. Somewhere out there, new pilots were climbing into cockpits, some dreaming of glory, some praying just to return. And she knew she'd go back too, because that's what pilots did. They flew into fear again and again until fear learned their names. At 400 hours, her pager buzzed, scramble alert. She didn't hesitate. The body moved before thought. Suit up, run, checklist ladder. The sunrise had barely touched the horizon when her jet roared to life. Through the canopy, the first light broke over the sand like a blade drawn from a sheath. Viper cleared for immediate launch, came the voice from tower. She pushed the throttle forward. The F-16 leapt down the runway, wheels lifting free. And as the ground fell away, she whispered, to herself, to her brother, to anyone listening, "Let's see who's waiting this time." Because for some people, peace isn't a destination. It's just the space between missions. What happens when the enemy stops fighting to win and starts fighting just to hurt you? The raids began at night. Not the large, coordinated strikes of before, but small, spiteful attacks, single aircraft, sometimes two, slipping across the border under radar, firing a few missiles at supply convoys, then vanishing into darkness. There was no strategy anymore, just vengeance. And vengeance was messy. Captain Lena Hart had seen this kind of war before. The quiet, bitter phase that comes after pride dies but anger refuses to. She stood by the tactical display in the operations room, arms folded, eyes tracking the blinking red markers. They came and went like ghosts, fast, unpredictable, cruel. "They're not after targets," she said finally. "They're after morale." Colonel Hendricks nodded grimly. "And it's working. Our pilots are exhausted. They can't relax. They're waiting for something to explode every time the sun goes down." Lena glanced at the roster board. 5 new names in the last 2 weeks, replacements for those who'd rotated home or burned out. Kids, most of them, barely out of training. "Then we teach them to stop waiting," she said. "We make fear routine." The next morning, she called for an unscheduled training session. The squadron assembled on the tarmac, bleary-eyed but curious. Razor leaned against his jet, helmet under his arm, eyebrows raised. "You do know it's barely dawn, right?" "That's when the enemy flies," she said, "and so do we." Santos grinned. "What are we running?" "Something you can't practice in a simulator. Exhaustion, confusion, and teamwork." Razor groaned. "That sounds terrible." "That's the point." They flew into the dawn haze, 12 jets climbing through thin clouds that glowed gold around their wings. Lena's voice came over the radio, calm and clear. "Scenario 1, ambush, unknown contact, low visibility, limited communication. Follow your instincts but stay alive." Within seconds, she disappeared from radar. The squadron spread out, searching, calling, adjusting altitude. And then she struck. She came in from above, silent, invisible in the sun glare. Her simulated missile locks lit up half their systems before anyone realized she was there. "Falcon 4, you're dead," she said evenly. "Falcon 5, so are you. Razor, you'd be ejecting right about now." Razor cursed under his breath. "You said this was training." "It is," she replied. "And the lesson is simple. The enemy doesn't care about your plan. They care about your mistakes." By the time the exercise ended, only Santos had survived the mock engagement. She stayed low, moved unpredictably, and kept her calm silent. When they landed, Lena waited at the edge of the runway, arms crossed. Santos climbed out of her jet first, beaming despite the sweat streaking her face. "How'd I do?" "You lived," Lena said. That's better than most. Razor walked past, shaking his head. You're impossible to beat. That's because I've already made every mistake you just made, she said softly, and I survived long enough to learn from them. That afternoon, she found Razor sitting alone in the hangar, helmet resting on his knee. He looked up when she approached. I don't get it. I did everything right. I stayed high, I managed my turns, I checked my six. That's the problem, she said. You did everything textbook. The enemy reads textbooks too. He frowned. So what do I do? She knelt beside him, tapping the side of his helmet. You stop being predictable. You stop thinking like a pilot and start thinking like prey. Survival isn't about skill, it's about adaptation. Razor looked down. You make it sound like survival's the only goal. It is, she said. Every dead hero I know thought otherwise. That night, another alert sounded. 3 enemy aircraft, low altitude, heading straight for a supply convoy. No warning, no time. The scramble sirens cut through the base like knives. Lena was already running before the second alarm blared. She hit the flight line with Razor and Santos close behind, helmets on, adrenaline turning the world into sharp clarity. Tower Viper, Falcon flight ready for immediate launch, she said. Cleared for takeoff, bandits inbound 20 miles out. The F-16 roared down the runway, tires leaving the ground just as the horizon exploded into motion. Radar screens filled with noise, the enemy using jamming pulses, static like white fire. 3 contacts low and fast, Santos called. Bearing 090. Copy, Lena said. Razor, you're with me. Santos, high cover. She dove through the interference, scanning visually now. The desert below was a smear of black and silver. Then a flash, a reflection. Got you, she whispered. The first MiG popped into view, hugging the ground, skimming dunes. She rolled, locked, fired. Vox 3. The missile streaked downward, vanished into dust, then bloomed in fire. Splash 1. The other 2 broke hard right, splitting formation. Razor chased one, Santos the other. Falcon 3 engaged, Razor called, voice strained. Stay wide, Lena warned. They'll try to bait you into a low turn. Too late. Razor's radar warning screamed. The MiG had reversed the fight, pulling vertical, dumping flares, launching a missile at point-blank range. Lena saw it happening, saw the telltale flare bloom, the smoke trail curling. She rolled hard, dove, and fired a decoy missile to pull the MiG sensors off Razor's tail. It worked barely. The enemy missile exploded harmlessly behind her jet, rattling the frame. Razor brake left now. He obeyed, pulling high and wide. The MiG overshot. Lena came up beneath it, centered the reticle, and fired. Guns. Tracer rounds tore through the MiG's belly. It disintegrated in midair. Splash 2. But Santos was still in trouble. Her voice came over the radio, clipped and panicked. He's on me, I can't shake him. Lena pulled for altitude, her body slamming into the seat under 8 Gs. The horizon blurred, the sky twisted. She saw them 2 dots, weaving through a cloud bank. Santos braking hard, the MiG matching her every move. Hold steady, Lena said. Just a second longer. Can't he's. Now. Lena's missile lock chirped. Vox 2. The Sidewinder screamed across the distance and struck the MiG dead center. The explosion lit the clouds from within like lightning. Santos's voice trembled. Target destroyed. Breathe, Lena said. And don't forget that feeling. That's what staying alive costs. They returned to base under a bruised twilight sky. Razor's jet had scorch marks down the tail. Santos's fuel was almost gone. Lena's hands ached from gripping the stick. When they landed, the ground crews cheered, but she didn't. She climbed down the ladder slowly, helmet tucked under her arm, the roar of the engines fatting into wind. Razor caught up beside her. You saved both of us. Lena shook her head. No, you saved yourself when you listened. Santos did too, I just gave you time. He smiled faintly. You make it sound easy. It never is, she said. Later that night, Hendricks joined her in the observation deck overlooking the runway. The colonel poured 2 cups of coffee and handed her one. You ever get tired of being right? Hendricks asked. Lena laughed quietly. Constantly. Then why keep doing it? She stared out at the distant lights. Because if I stop, someone else dies who doesn't have to. They drank in silence for a while. You know, Hendricks said finally, most pilots would have burned out by now. You're still flying like you've got something to prove. Not something, Lena said softly, someone. The colonel didn't press. Some ghosts didn't need names. Weeks passed. The raids grew rarer, then stopped entirely. One morning, Lena woke to find the flight line quiet. No alerts, no scramble sirens, just stillness. Peace, or something like it. She walked the runway alone. The sun was just breaking over the horizon, painting the world in gold. For the first time in months, she heard birds. Razor jogged up beside her. Feels weird, doesn't it? What does? The quiet. She smiled faintly. You get used to it until it ends. He looked at her then, really looked. You ever think about stopping, about just leaving all this? She didn't answer right away. Every time I take off, she said finally, but the sky always answers first. That evening the squadron gathered around the ready room table. Not for a mission briefing, but for something simpler, a meal, a toast, a moment. Razor stood and raised his glass. To Viper, the one who taught us fear isn't the enemy, ignorance is. Lena didn't like speeches, but she didn't stop him either. She just smiled, tired, grateful, a little haunted. Santos lifted her glass next. To the woman who made us better. Lena raised hers last. To the ones who didn't come home, they're the reason we did. They drank in silence after that. No cheers, no applause, just the quiet clinking of glasses and the shared understanding that some victories are too heavy to celebrate. Later, when the room had emptied and the lights dimmed, Lena stood alone again by the window. Outside, the flight line glowed under moonlight. Her F-16 parked in the corner, its fuselage streaked with dust, its kill marks gleaming faintly under silver light. She touched the glass and whispered, "Rest now, we've earned one night." The wind picked up, soft and cool, carrying the scent of sand and jet fuel. And somewhere far away, beyond radar range, another storm was forming, invisible, inevitable. But that was tomorrow's problem. For now, there was only the hum of memory. And a pilot who'd forgotten how to stop flying. Sometimes, survival isn't about defying death. It's about learning how to live with it. What happens when the war moves inside your head? Al-Azad Air Base had never been quieter. The sirens had stopped. The skis were empty. The world, for the first time in months, felt almost gentle. Almost. Captain Lena Hart stood by the window of the operations building, coffee cooling in her hand, eyes tracing the horizon. The desert shimmered like a mirage, but she wasn't fooled. Stillness was just another kind of camouflage. She'd seen it before, that deceptive calm before the next kind of fight. This one wouldn't come on radar. It would come for her mind. The first sign came 3 days later. An encrypted transmission arrived on the command network, the kind used by Allied squadrons. It carried no header, no authentication, just a voice. Burkut's voice. "Good evening, Viper," it said, distorted through static. "You fly well, but even the best pilots fall someday. I hope you sleep, knowing how many names your missiles erased." The message ended with coordinates. A barren stretch of desert where his wreckage had fallen weeks earlier. Then silence. Razor played the recording twice, brow furrowed. Could be faked, could be an AI splice. "It's not," Lena said quietly. He looked at her, "You sure?" I know that voice, and I know what it means." "What does it mean?" She sipped her coffee. "It means they're not done with me." Colonel Hendricks was furious when she heard. "Psychological warfare," she said. "They're trying to break morale to make people question you, question what we're doing here." "They won't have to try hard," Lena murmured. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means people don't need propaganda to feel doubt. They just need time." The colonel studied her for a long moment. "You look tired." "I am tired." "Maybe take some leave, go home, see family." Lena almost laughed. "You know I haven't had a home since before this war started." The colonel didn't argue. "Then build one, before this place eats you alive." That night Lena couldn't sleep. She sat in her quarters, watching the ceiling fan spin shadows across the walls. Burkut's voice echoed in her head, that calm, measured tone that had haunted her since the duel. She replayed it frame by frame in her memory, the final moments, the way his MiG rolled into the mountainside, his last words. "Skill is skill." Why did that line sound less like surrender and more like warning now? She got up, opened her flight log, and stared at the numbers. 29 kills, 29 ghosts. How many of them had families, children, brothers who'd wear bracelets with their initials? Her own bracelet glinted under the lamp, EMH. Her brother. He used to joke that pilots didn't die, they just changed altitude. But even he had vanished into the kind of sky you couldn't fly back from. Morning brought another message. This one wasn't over comms. It was carved into the dust on her canopy. "You forgot one." The words were written in fingertip streaks, faint but visible. Chen found her standing beside the jet, jaw tight, eyes cold. "Who's been near your aircraft?" he asked immediately. "No one authorized," she said. "You'd have seen them." "I did the pre-check myself this morning. There was nothing there." "Then someone got in last night." "Impossible," he muttered. "Perimeter sealed, cameras." "Cameras can be looped," she said. He looked at her, pale. "What does it mean?" "It means whoever wrote it knows my record, and they think I missed something." She brushed the dust off with her glove, erasing the message, but the unease didn't erase with it. The next few days passed in slow dread. Tiny things went wrong. A maintenance log missing a signature, a fuel manifest misfiled, a radar display that flickered with phantom contacts before stabilizing. Nothing major, nothing provable. But together they painted a pattern. Lena started sleeping in her flight suit, just in case. She caught herself checking shadows twice, rereading documents she'd already signed. Her reflection in the mirror began to look like someone else, a stranger trying to remember who she was before all this. Santos noticed first. "Ma'am," she said one evening after a briefing, "you're off. You don't look right." Lena forced a small smile. "That's what happens when you stop pretending you're invincible." Santos frowned. "If you fall apart, the rest of us will too." "That's why I won't," Lena said. A week later, Hendricks called her in again. "We've traced the origin of those transmissions," she said. "A relay drone, autonomous, programmed to loop messages, probably set up before you killed Burkut. So he planned this." "Looks that way." "What about the writing on my canopy?" The colonel hesitated. "That we can't explain." "Someone got close enough to touch my jet. That's not a coincidence." "Security teams are investigating." Lena stared at the colonel for a long time. "Do you trust them?" "I have to." "I don't." "Lena." She stood, cutting her off. "You said they're trying to break me. Maybe they already have." That night she went back to the flight line alone. The moon was high, the air still. Her jet sat in its revetment, canopy polished, waiting. The same aircraft that had carried her through every kill, every storm. She climbed onto the wing, sat cross-legged by the cockpit, and whispered, "You ever feel tired too?" The silence answered. She closed her eyes. The memories came in waves, missiles streaking through blue skis, faces in debriefing rooms, her brother's voice. "Fly smart, Lena," he used to say. "The sky doesn't forgive arrogance." She looked up at the stars. Neither do people. At 300, alarms blared again, not for attack but for intrusion. Security found a motion sensor tripped near the command hangar. No footprints, no vehicles, just the faint whine of a drone fatting into the night sky. When they replayed the feed, the drone's camera showed something strange, a painted symbol on the hangar wall. A falcon silhouette. And beneath it, the sky REMBRS. The same phrase used by Burkutt's old unit. Razor slammed his fist on the table. "They're mocking us." Lena stared at the screen, jaw set. "No, they're testing me, seeing if I'll break." "You already killed their best pilot." "Exactly, which means I took something personal from them. They want to take something personal back." Later, alone, she found herself at the memorial wall again. She stared at her brother's initials, then whispered, "They want to remind me I'm not invincible, that I bleed too." Her reflection in the steel looked back, the calm, unreadable mask of a soldier who'd forgotten where the person ended and the legend began. She whispered, "So be it." The next morning, she walked into the ready room wearing her flight gear. Razor and Santos looked up, startled. "Another mission?" Razor asked. "Yes," she said, "personal one." Hendricks appeared in the doorway. "Absolutely not. You're grounded until we assess the threat." "With respect, ma'am," Lena said, "the threat's already assessed. It's me. They're baiting me because they think fear will do what their missiles couldn't." The colonel's voice hardened. "You go up there, you're walking straight into their hands." "Then I'll take their hands with me." Silence. Finally, Hendricks exhaled. "You don't take orders very well, do you?" "Only when they're wrong." At dawn, the desert looked different, sharper, hungrier. Lena's F-16 thundered down the runway, wheels lifting just as the horizon caught fire. No formation, no wingman, just her and the sky again. "Tower Viper airborne, heading 085. "Viper, we do not have clearance on this op." She cut the radio. Climbing through 20,000 feet, she scanned the expanse below. No radar pings, no enemy contacts, just silence. Then in her headset, that voice again. "Good morning, Viper." Burkutt, or the echo of him? "You came," the voice said. "Good, now finish what you started." She didn't respond. The radar flickered faint blips, then gone. Her heart pounded once hard. Then the blips returned, 6 of them, spreading wide, circling her position. Not ghosts, not recordings. Real. She keyed her mic. Alazed Control Viper. Multiple unknowns bearing 085, range 30 miles. Confirm contacts. No answer, just static. The voice returned. "You forgot one, remember, 6 of us, not 5. Her blood ran cold. Burkutt hadn't been alone that day. He'd had a 6th, one that never entered radar range, one that had disappeared before the battle began. And now it was here. She tightened her harness. "All right," she whispered, "let's dance." The sky around her filled with motion, 6 enemy aircraft fanning out in coordinated formation. Her radar lit up like a storm. For the first time in weeks, she smiled, a real one. Fear was back, and she knew exactly what to do with it. How many seconds can a pilot think before instinct takes over? At 20,000 feet, thought died. Only reflex survived. The 6 enemy aircraft fanned out across her radar, silent, precise, disciplined. They weren't raiders or recruits. They were Burkutt's disciples, his unfinished war, flying in formation. Lena adjusted her oxygen mask, eyes narrowing against the sun glare. "All right," she whispered. "Let's see what he taught you." Her radar lock chirped, then all hell broke loose. Two of them dived immediately, splitting low left and right, trying to bait her downward. She stayed high, forcing them to waste energy on the climb. "Classic pincer," she muttered. "You'll have to do better." She rolled right, pulled into the vertical, and let the GS crush her into the seat. Her blood roared in her ears. The sky turned white. Then she dove, cutting power, disappearing off their radar. Her F-16 knifed through thin cloud, vapor trails slicing past like ghosts. She spotted the first MiG below, nose up, scanning desperately for her. Lena squeezed the trigger, Fox 2. The Sidewinder tracked heat like a predator and struck center mass. The MiG erupted in orange bloom, pieces spinning into the desert below. Splash 1. The others answered immediately, 6 radar locks screaming in her headset, a chorus of death. Missiles streaked upward in unison, contrails crossing like white scars. Lena rolled inverted, dove for the deck, slammed countermeasures. Flares burst behind her like dying stars. The first missile missed by inches. A shockwave slammed her cockpit, rattling her bones. "Close," she breathed. Her radar warning blared again, 2 more incoming. She pulled high G, banking low across the dunes, dust plumbing behind her tail. "Not yet," she whispered. "You don't get me yet." The missiles followed, hungry. She popped the air brake, dumped throttle, and rolled hard left. The F-16 dropped like a stone. The missiles overshot, slamming into each other midair. The shockwave rippled through the sand below, scattering it like waves. She hit afterburner and climbed again. From above, the surviving 5 closed in, weaving like wolves around their prey. They weren't reckless. They were disciplined, unnervingly so. Burkut style, measured, patient, ruthless. For a moment, Lena almost admired it. Then she remembered what admiration cost. She rolled behind a cloud bank, using it as cover, watching the shadows move. The formation split, 3 high, 2 low. They were boxing her in. She smiled. "You think I'm the prey." She popped out of the cloud, nose down, firing a burst of chaff and diving straight through the center of their trap. They hesitated, 1 second too long. She locked onto the trailing aircraft, fired. Fox 3. Hit confirmed. Explosion flared behind her like sunrise. 4 left. The radio crackled suddenly, a voice cutting through static. "Good shot, Viper." Her heart froze. It was him. Burkut's voice again, alive, amused. "You fly like I taught you," it said. "Who are you?" she snapped. No answer, just breathing. "Ghosts don't talk," she whispered. "Then stop listening," the voice replied. She silenced the channel and focused. But the words clung to her mind like smoke. Her breathing grew shallow. "Focus, focus." One of the remaining MiGs swung into view, head-on pass, cannon fire flashing like lightning. She rolled under it, tracers cutting through the canopy glare. The world became a blur of motion and light. She pulled into the vertical again, airspeed bleeding. The MiG followed, trying to force her into a stall. But she'd been here before. She inverted, rolled back down, and cut throttle. The MiG overshot cleanly. "Guns!" Her burst stitched across its fuselage. The aircraft shattered, tumbling into dust. 3. The next 2 came at once, coordinated, synchronized, precise. 1 high, 1 low, forcing her to commit to one side. She chose neither. Instead, she dove between them, flipped inverted, and fired upward through the canopy. Fox 2. The missile streaked up, hit the higher target dead center. She yanked the stick hard right, skimming the dunes, sand exploding behind her wake. 2. The last 2 regrouped, smarter now, flying tighter, conserving fuel, trading altitude for position. They weren't chasing her anymore, they were waiting. That's when she understood. They weren't trying to kill her. They were trying to tire her out. Let her make one mistake, One breath too slow, one climb too wide. That was Burkutt's final lesson. Patience kills. Her oxygen level warning beeped. She'd been airborne nearly 40 minutes. Sweat dripped into her collar. Every muscle in her neck burned. The world narrowed to sound and instinct, radar chirps, G-force groans, her heartbeat. She whispered, "Not today." She pulled the F-16 into the upper atmosphere, blue turning black. The MiGs followed, engines screaming, contrails thinning into mist. At the top of the climb, her jet hung weightless for a moment, suspended in silence. She flipped inverted, let gravity take her. The MiG shot past her, unable to correct in time. She throttled back, rolled upright and fired. Fox 3. Missile away, target gone. One. Only one left now. It broke formation completely, dove away, running for the horizon. She chased. The desert blurred beneath her, endless dunes, heat waves, wreckage glinting far below. The chase dragged on, both jets skimming barely 50 feet above the ground, sonic ripples trailing like wings of fire. She closed distance slowly, methodically. Her radar pinged again, lock achieved. But she hesitated. The voice returned, softer this time. "Go ahead, Viper, finish it, end the pattern." Her finger tightened on the trigger. But something stopped her. The pattern. She replayed the memory of their formation in her head. The spacing, the angles, the climb rate. 6 aircraft, 5 destroyed, 1 fleeing. Except no, not fleeing. Leading. Her radar blinked faint at first, then clearer. Another contact, 20 miles ahead, climbing high. The 6th. Her instincts screamed. It wasn't a retreat, it was a trap. She pulled back, hard, banking away, just as a missile streaked down from above. The shockwave slammed her sideways, warning lights flaring across the dash. Her right engine coughed, then caught again. "Nice try," she hissed. The 6th aircraft emerged from the glare of the sun, sleek and silent, black markings across its wings. The symbol she'd seen on the hangar wall, the falcon's silhouette. Burkutt's emblem. The voice came again, "You forgot one." They met in the open sky, predator and successor. The duel was fast, vicious, surgical. Every turn matched, every roll countered. Her mind blurred between now and memory, Burkutt's maneuvers, his cadence, his rhythm. Whoever this was, they weren't just trained by him. They were him in every movement. His echo, his revenge. At one point, they passed canopy to canopy, close enough for her to see the pilot's helmet. The visor was mirrored, but she caught a reflection of her own face, older, colder, just as relentless. For a heartbeat, she wondered if this was what the galaxy saw when it looked at her. They spiraled downward in locked combat, twisting through air that burned white from friction. Her missile count was empty, guns only. "Let's finish this the way it started," she whispered. She pulled high, forcing the enemy into a climb. He matched it perfectly. Then halfway through, she cut throttle, a maneuver so risky it bordered on suicidal. Her F-16 flipped backward, stalling for an instant, but that instant was enough. The enemy shot past her, losing angle. She rolled leveled, fired a 2-second cannon burst. The round struck his tail section clean. The jet lurched, caught flame. He tried to pull up too late. The explosion tore across the horizon. Lena's voice came through the static, soft, pattern complete. Her jet trembled, low fuel, system alarms, blood pounding. She exhaled shakily, feeling her hands tremble against the stick. "Control, Viper," she said into the radio, voice raw. "Area secure. Multiple bogies destroyed, returning to base." Silence. Then Hendrix's voice, shaky but alive. "Copy that, Viper. We thought we lost you." "Not today," she whispered. She flew home through a sunset painted in fire. The desert stretched beneath her, 6 black plumes marking the graves of 6 ghosts. For a long time she didn't speak. When she finally touched down, the wheels hit the tarmac like punctuation. The ground crew ran forward, cheering, waving. She didn't wave back. She climbed out, helmet still on, face hidden. Razor was waiting at the bottom of the ladder. He stared at her for a long moment, then said, "You did it." "No," she said quietly. "He did, I just finished his story." That night she stood by the memorial wall again. The wind was gentle, the desert quiet. She traced her brother's initials. Then she whispered another name, the one she'd never expected to honor. Burkut. She closed her eyes. You were right, skill is skill, but mercy, mercy takes more. For the first time in years she cried, not for the dead, for the living who'd have to carry them. In the distance, a new dawn began to rise, thin light bleeding over the mountains. Her reflection on the steel wall looked different now, not a legend, not a ghost. Just a pilot who'd survived one more mission. And that was enough. Sometimes peace isn't won by killing your enemies. It's earned by refusing to become one of them. When the noise ends, what's left? For the first time in years, the sky over Alazad base was empty. No contrails, no radar beacons, no echoes of war. Just silence. The kind that feels too big for one person to stand inside. Captain Lena Hart sat alone in the maintenance bay, flight helmet beside her, staring at the F-16 she'd flown through hell and back. It was scarred, patched, tired, just like her. Mechanics had offered to repaint it. She told them no. Some scars deserved to stay visible. Outside, the base carried on. Crews refueled transports, engineers loaded relief supplies, medics prepped for evacuation runs. War was over, at least this war. But peace, she'd learned, wasn't silence. It was the noise you never hear again. She'd spent 2 days in debriefs, 1 day sleeping. And every night since, she woke to the same sound, the echo of Burkut's voice fading into static. Skill is skill. She could still hear it every time the wind shifted. Colonel Hendricks found her that morning, standing on the runway's edge, watching the sunrise. "Looks like you're avoiding paperwork," the colonel said. Lena smirked faintly. "You know me." "I do," Hendricks said. "Too well, you're thinking about flying again." Lena didn't answer. "You've earned a break, maybe even retirement. Command would sign it in a heartbeat." "I'm not done yet." "Yes, you are," Hendricks said gently. "At least for now. You've given us enough skis for a lifetime." Lena looked away. The horizon shimmered gold. "The thing about the sky, Colonel, it never tells you when to stop." The colonel sighed. "Then you have to learn to tell yourself." Later in her quarters, Lena began to pack. Not much to take. Her flight suit, her logbook, the bracelet with her brother's initials. She paused when she reached the stack of sealed letters, the ones she used to burn after every mission. Notes to families she'd never send. She ran her hand over the top one. The paper had yellowed at the edges. Ink bled slightly from the heat of the burn barrel. She opened it. The handwriting was steady, unflinching. "To the family of the man I killed today. He flew beautifully. I hope he finds peace somewhere I can't see him anymore." She folded it back and placed it inside her helmet. Not as guilt, as memory. That evening the squadron threw a farewell dinner. The hangar lights glowed warm against the cool desert air. Folding tables lined the floor, laughter and quiet conversation mixing with the clatter of plates. Razor was there, hair longer now, eyes calmer. Santos, too, her uniform streaked with grease from a day of training the next generation. When Lena walked in, the room fell silent for a second, then everyone stood. She hated that. "Sit," she said softly. "Please, we're all the same rank tonight." They did. Someone played an old country song through a half-broken speaker. Someone else poured coffee that tasted like machine oil. It was perfect. Halfway through the night, Razor raised his cup. To Viper, the best damn teacher I've ever had. Cheers followed, but Lena lifted her cup last. To the pilots who flew beside me, she said, and to the ones who never landed, you're the reason any of us still can. No one spoke after that. Some toasted, some bowed their heads. In that quiet, even the hangar seemed to listen. After the meal, Santos found her sitting outside by the airstrip, boots resting on the tarmac. You really leaving? Lena nodded, for a while. Where will you go? She smiled faintly, home. Santos frowned. You said you don't have one. I didn't, Lena said, but maybe it's time I build one. Doesn't have to be a house. Just somewhere I can watch the horizon without wondering who's dying under it. Santos nodded slowly. Can I ask something? Anything. Were you ever afraid up there? Lena looked at her, eyes soft. Every time. Then how did you keep flying? She thought for a moment. Because fear's not the enemy, it's the map. It tells you where the edge is, and if you learn to read it, you never fall off. Weeks later, she stood at a civilian airfield halfway across the country. The wind smelled like rain and grass instead of jet fuel. The only sound was a single-engine prop plane coughing to life on the far runway. Lena wore jeans, a leather jacket, sunglasses. For once, she looked like anyone else. But when she looked up at the clouds, the fighter pilot in her still stirred. The sky never forgets its children. She rented a small cabin near the coast, wooden walls, a porch that faced west. The sound of waves replaced the scream of turbines. She'd sit there at dusk, coffee in hand, watching the sky turn orange, then purple, then black. At first she hated the quiet. It felt like betrayal. Like she'd left part of herself behind in the cockpit. But with time, she began to hear something new in the silence, the faint hum of her own heartbeat. It wasn't peace, not exactly. It was permission. Months passed. She taught at a flight school for veterans, guiding pilots transitioning to civilian air. Her students never knew who she'd been. She never told them. When one of them asked if she'd ever flown combat, she just smiled. A few skis ago. They laughed, thinking it was a joke. And maybe it was. One evening, Razor showed up, still in uniform. They hadn't spoken in months. He parked his Jeep, walked up the porch, and handed her a thin envelope. From command, he said, official commendation, you're being awarded the Silver Star. She didn't open it. I don't need a medal. I know, but they do. They need to remember what it costs. Lena looked out toward the horizon. It costs more than metal can repay. Razor nodded. You know they're nomming the new training wing after you. She blinked. That's ridiculous. Not really. You taught us how to survive. She smiled. Then don't waste it. He hesitated, then asked, do you miss it? She sipped her coffee. Every day, but I don't crave it anymore. He grinned. That's progress. Maybe, she said softly, or maybe it's just learning to breathe again. When he left, she stayed on the porch long after his taillights vanished. The night was clear, stars everywhere, the same sky she'd once fought under. Somewhere out there, 6 wrecks still lay scattered in the desert. And maybe, in some strange way, they'd become part of her too. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. For a moment, she could almost hear the roar of afterburners. Almost. Then it faded. She smiled. Days later, she received one more message, not from command, not from anyone she knew. No signature, just a single line typed in an old military format. The sky, RMBRS. She read it twice, then folded it carefully and tucked it inside her logbook. This time she didn't feel haunted. She felt understood. Because the sky did remember. It remembered every loss, every heartbeat, every name whispered in the dark. And maybe that was the point. Maybe remembrance was the only kind of immortality that mattered. That night, she took her brother's bracelet from her wrist and set it on the porch railing. The metal gleamed in moonlight. "Fly safe, kid," she whispered, "wherever you are." The tide rolled in, and the sound of it blended with the faint hum of wind, steady, eternal. She closed her eyes. For the first time in years, she slept without dreaming of engines. The next morning, the ocean was calm. She stood at the edge of the cliff, hair whipping in the breeze, sunrise painting the horizon gold. No uniform, no call sign, just Lena. A woman who had once been defined by war, now defined by what she'd chosen to leave behind. She raised her hand to the light, as if saluting something only she could see. And in that moment, brief, wordless, infinite, the sky seemed to bow back. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And sometimes the bravest thing a soldier can do is stop fighting